Do you remember what the old phones used to look like? Many of you were not around when some of these were. But these devices used to do essentially one thing, call. Eventually got into sending a text. And sometimes you got it, sometimes you didn't. But when you think about it, how far we come in a space of about 3 decades, where today, with over 1.5 million applications out there, the mobile device has become much more than a calling device. It's what some people term a remote control for life. Now, I have a great interest in strategy as it applies to the telecommunications industry. And over the last 15 years, I've been working with my peers and my colleagues from around the world, trying to understand how does technology innovation impact society. Now, you may be well to ask, so what do strategists do? And that's important if you want to impress your in-laws, if you want to tell your mother, your spouse, your girlfriend, boyfriend, or explain it to your children. You see, strategists don't actually buy, manufacture, sell, or even make anything. Strategists, they point the way. And they do so in ways that help us make decisions. And they do it by looking at the trends that we see, putting some data behind it, and articulating a case. Now, I believe that mobility has a key to help us engage society to address some of the big questions of our time. At its core, strategists believe that there isn't one future out there, and that the future doesn't just come to us, that there are some things that are predictable, and some things that we can impact by taking action. Of course, the further you move along, the less certain you can be. But not everything is completely unpredictable, and we can take action. So, what are the telecommunications trends that we see? Well, first, communication is growing and is changing. It turns out that we are communicating ever more, not less, as some may have you believe. We're just using different ways. So what used to be calling one person to another person has now become communicating to one person, to a group of people, to various groups of people, to many, to the world. Using many devices, application, and rich media, using voice, messaging, video, email. What else do we see? The world has gone mobile. There are more mobile devices today in the world than there are people. And that's very important. Because what it's doing is blurring the digital and the physical worlds. Now, we don't believe that the world will become fully digital, at least not yet. But what we do believe is that these two worlds will start and already are reinforcing each other. So you meet someone in a social network and you start messaging. Soon you start calling, and then you eventually meet. And this is important because this is changing the way we think. Third, we are now with phones that are much more powerful and the networks that are much more efficient that enable us to do things that we thought were not possible before. So when you think about your device today, it is much more powerful than the Cray computer in the past. It has much more processing power. And it's coming now in the range of $50 to $80. When you think of smartphones today, there's about 35% of the world that has a smartphone. But they are concentrated in the developed world, so it appears that to us that everybody has a smartphone, but it's not so. But in the next 5 years, this is about to change. And about 65% of the world's population will have a smartphone. And that's an incredible thought, because that growth is going to come from places that never had it before. It's going to come from places like Brazil, Mexico, China, India, Indonesia. And when you have billions of people coming now to the world of the internet, in their palm of the hands, you have amazing things that are about to happen. Fourth, it turns out that we are collaborating ever more. So the days where innovators used to go into a garage and be working together in secret without an innovation and then coming out with it at the end of the day, those days still exist but are far and few between. Today, your innovators, you're most likely to hear them talking to each other, exchanging ideas, not only with their immediate surrounding, but across the world. Take this platform. This platform was developed in Kenya. And it was developed after the elections in 2008. And it was developed in order to provide people a voice to see what the government crackdown was going on. Fast forward to 2015, where a set of volunteers have been using a different innovation to start mapping Nepal. When the earthquake earlier this year took place, it didn't take long to put that innovation on top of this one. And then with a set of volunteers, start tweeting or saying or communicating and saying, there's need in this village, in remote places. And then could direct the help. Things that were never possible before suddenly are possible. So when you look at these things, what do they tell you when you start connecting the dots? Technology is becoming the great democratizing power. And in doing so, it's enabling us things to do that before we thought impossible, and suddenly will be possible. You see, when you provide people the tools and you make it easy to use with the right incentives, people will use them and get engaged. As an example, I met someone in the town of Cumbrian in Wales, where the road of the street, people got together to then, in a WhatsApp, connect to each other. What started out as a social network then became neighbor help neighbor, then became neighbor for watch, and now trying to work with the council to affect policy. And when I spoke with the person that started that, he said, our view is to connect the entire street. So it works at the small, at the large level as well. But you see, all this innovation is taking place in the backdrop of the real world. And in the real world, the physical world, there are some big questions that we need to address. For starters, we're in a planet of 7.2 billion people. By 2050, this will become 9.6 billion people. So some obvious questions. How are we going to feed each other? Today, there's about 800 million people that go hungry every day. How are we going to provide water and sanitation when 700 million people still do not have access to them? It takes about 3,000 liters to feed one person at one day. And we can just about cope. What about energy? How are we going to produce energy in sustainable ways? Human migration due to conflict. If you live in Europe, you would know that over the last few months, there's been a stem of flow. And that flow will reach over 800 to 1 million people by the end of the year due to human conflict. How are we going to address these questions? Finally, climate change. You see, it's not just climate change. It's also the speed at which it's changing. Consider this. Over the last 100 years, our planet has risen in temperature, on the average, 0.6 degrees. Over the next 100 years, if we don't take action, that number is going to go to 6 to 7 degrees. And then all bets are off. So why is it that we understand the issue so well, but yet we are very limited in taking action? Well, to understand that, you need to understand the model that we're using. You see, for centuries, we've been using a model that outsources decision-making to others, to the few, to politicians, to experts, policymakers, interest groups, with the public involved at the margins. And that has served us well when it comes to local, regional, or national issues. But when it comes to global issues, this model is no longer fit for purpose. Why? Because the issues that we're dealing are global. And by definition, they require a global response, away from the defending of national interests, with an understanding that we're all in it together. Second, the issues are complex, And not every expert agrees on the causes, let alone the solutions. And third, it seems that the impact of these issues are very remote, both in time and in geography. As a result, what you have is a society that is unengaged. And this is important, because when society is unengaged, we are unable to conduct a democratic debate and to elect the right officials and to take action at our local level, because we're simply not informed and unengaged. So the solution seems pretty obvious. So here's my proposal. In order to make this work, we must regard ourselves collectively and individually as part of the solution. And unless we do that, these questions will remain largely unaddressed. And the future that we expect for our children and those after that is simply not going to be there, at least in the way we envision it. So what to do? Well, I believe that not taking action is no longer a luxury. Not preparing the next generation is not something that we can afford to do. So my first proposal is that it begins with education, particularly of the new generations of children. The time has come to make the study of the big questions as important as math, grammar, and creative areas. And with that, to make part of the understanding of why is this important, what is the rationale, but more important, what are the solutions at the local and global levels as well. You see, unless this becomes part of our everyday conversation and is part of our mindset every day, we're not going to address these questions. But that in itself is not alone. What we need is the internet of the big questions, a place where you can find all the information in the world that we know about these questions, a place where people can debate, engage, challenge each other, but more importantly, take action at the local level. Today, you'll be hard-pressed to find information about these issues. There are many platforms out there, and some of them are doing a great job, but they have failed to get the entire population about them in ways that other platforms have done it. So here's where I stand where all this. When you look at the media, and you look at the reports and images that come to us, it all seems that the battle is lost. It all seems that there's a future that we're going into where there is no way out. Well, I refuse to believe that future, for I believe in the human ingenuity to go and face the challenges before us. Now, we've done it before. The Millennium Goals to achieve by 2015 to decrease extreme poverty by less than 5% of the population, and the Millennium Goal to halve the population that has no access to clean water, both were achieved ahead of time. So we can do it, and we will do it. You see, we are living at a time that is a special moment in history when it comes to technological innovation. It's what I called a Renaissance moment. When you go beyond the centers of innovation, the traditional ones, and you go to places like Kazan, like Cape Town, like Nairobi, like San Juan, you will find amazing things being done by ordinary people, and it's flourishing. So here's the thought. When you have billions and billions of people equipped with these powerful digital tools, unbounded by geography and time, all united in one objective, you know that there's amazing things about to happen, and they will. But they're not going to happen just by us standing around. They're going to happen by us taking action, and the time to take action is now. Now, this talk is as much for you as it was for these guys. Thank you.